Good morning to everybody. Obviously, you'll all have heard of the public consultations that have taken place in the last 2 weeks on the various islands, where we've discussed the draft new Crown Land policy. We've been looking for input from the public on the policy and for comments, and we've also used it as an opportunity to explain the contents of the new policy and the way going forward.
After 2 weeks of meeting with TCI residents in town hall meetings, Llewellyn, in a press conference held this morning at the Hilly Ewing building in Providenciales, told the media that the TCI public has, for the most part, shown support for the new policy, with only a handful of issues being brought up for serious debate. Yesterday, a town hall meeting was held at the Gustavus Lightbourne Sports Complex here in Providenciales, in which these topics were brought up and discussed. And today, Llewellyn again brought up these topics of concern and addressed them.
There have actually been, there's been a great deal of commonality between a lot of the meetings that we've had. People are very concerned about the amount of land that's made it into the private sector already. And they've been very concerned that steps need to be taken to get that land back for the benefit of the nation. The issue with that is that you have to draw a line between rightly overturning deals that clearly were not in the public interest and that may border on the criminal in the nature of the conduct of it, and also preserving confidence in the market that every deal isn't under scrutiny. And the way that we've handled that in these public consultation meetings is basically to recognise that there are a number of very high-profile cases that have already been dealt with in the press. These are well-known issues, and we have two mechanisms for dealing with those. Firstly, we have the criminal team, the Special Investigation and Prosecution team, who are looking at criminal aspects in relation to land disposals. And then we have the civil recovery team working in conjunction with the AG's chambers, looking at civil recovery options.
Other issues included locals having access to TCI beaches that have been restricted during past developments, and the new eligibility requirements that residents must meet to apply for residential Crown land in the future.
The two eligibility tests that we have are very simple in respect of residential allocation. Firstly, that you don't already have a residence registered in your own name. Because, of course, if you did, the theory would be that you didn't really have a particular need for more residential land. The second requirement is that you previously hadn't had an allocation of residential land. Now, most people could agree on the second requirement, but with the first requirement, they felt that there was certainly a category of person who'd worked very hard all their lives to develop their own private residential property, and it seemed a little unfair for the government to be excluding them from future allocations simply because they were the ones that had worked hard. To balance the argument, I pointed out that because they didn't have a pressing need for residential property, it may well be that their continued good contribution to society would be that they'd let somebody else with a more pressing need, therefore, have a crack at it. I think, that's certainly a suggestion that the Advisory Council needs to take into consideration.
Llewellyn was reluctant to discuss any individual circumstances regarding Crown land. However, this did not stop the public from voicing some of their private concerns. The biggest concern came from the citizens of Chalk Sound, who are still waiting for a solution to their land controversy.
But the issue with Chalk Sound now is that we understand the arguments of the Chalk Sound people. We understand how the situation arose. A course of action has been decided upon, and that course of action is now being pursued. And little more than that, I'm afraid, I can add to the argument.
On a whole, residents who are supportive of the policy are still concerned that the policy will not be enforced. Llewellyn replied that the policy is eventually to become an ordinance, and even further, he hopes that the core principles of the policy may even make it into the TCI Constitution. However, he stated that enforcement of government officials doing their job is up to the public and press to monitor. Llewellyn stated that many mistakes have been made in the past, mistakes that would take too much time and too many resources to investigate. He told the public that this new policy is not about the past, but moving forward in the right direction.
And I think what we need to do is draw a line under the unsustainable practices of the past, find a new way forward, and move on.
Llewellyn stated that the completion and enforcement of the policy may happen as soon as September 1st.